Hey guys, Vladimir here. Welcome to another video. I love my work being a software engineer because it allows me to deal with complex problems, really difficult problems or challenging problems, and I love solving it. But some days I just hate my job. And one of those days is today. It's because I'm dealing with a really complex or obscure issue and I'm dealing with for maybe 5 days in a row. And the problem is you cannot just sweep that issue under the rug because it still exists. If you interact in your code base with some external library and this interaction just doesn't work, you need to make sure it will work because you are depending on this. So as a result, I need to deal with that, and I hate it because the progress is really slow. Oftentimes you don't have any proper documentation. You dig in source code of external libraries just to find out some pieces to put together, and even that doesn't mean you will be successful in solving that issue. After 5 days I wasn't quite successful, but at least I was able to find a workaround which is acceptable for now. Anyway, let's talk about this issue and how did I proceed with solving it. So basically I work on a code base which consists of several components. There is a Python part. We are also interacting with external libraries written in C++. And also there is a code written in the R language, which if you are familiar with data science, R language is maybe number one along with Python to deal with complex data science problems. The reason why we are using R is because sometimes it may happen that some data science libraries aren't just available in Python, and it's easier to use something written in R, which is okay normally, but when you need to integrate that into your Python code, it's another potential source of problems. Python as a programming language is platform independent, but this ends at the moment when you start interacting with those external libraries or programs. So to sum up, we have a C++ code which is compiled into a binary, and we are interacting it with the Python subprocess, which is a quite standard way of interacting with some external tools or binaries, for example on Windows. And then we are also having some R code which uses some R language extensions installed separately in this R space or the space of the R programming language, and Python is interacting with this R through some bridge, and this is another potential problem for us. So while Python is platform independent and you can run the code almost anywhere, for example the same script normally works on Windows, Linux, Mac OS and other platforms, this ends at the moment when you start interacting with external world. For example, the C++ library you try to run from Python needs to be compiled for your target architecture. So this is the moment when you start being not platform independent. You need to create binaries for each platform you use or for each platform you support. In our case, I had to create a binary for Windows, and of course we also have binaries for Linux because our production systems run in Docker. So this is first potential source of problems. Now to this. We are interacting via subprocess, which is quite a standard way. It works on all architectures, and it works for simpler binaries or simpler interaction when you just want to fetch the data from the external process or external binary and process it. So this works quite well. Just remember you need to have this binary compiled for your target platform. So this part kind of works for me, The source of issue for me is the interaction with the R programming language. First of all, let me tell you this. I have a colleague who has a Windows machine and he somehow has it working, but you know, in environments like this there are many variables, like the Python version you use, the R language version you use, and the version of the modules doing the interaction between Python and R. All those combination along with the operating system version, like I am on Windows 11, makes it really difficult to troubleshoot, and while it works on one system, it might not work at all on some other system or a different combination. So this is really a potential source of problems. For interaction between Python and R, we are using a package called rpy2. I believe this is the most standard way how to approach this interaction. And what is the problem actually? Right now I'm in the virtual environment of Python, so let me run this. And when I try to do simple import of R objects from rpy2, it will just fail. Let's take a look. Do you see? It cannot open library with some obscure error 0x7e. By the way, till this point, after 5 days, I was not able to figure out what this error really means. And I'm not even sure what's the source of this error, if it's some kind of Python low-level error or it's some error thrown by some library along the way. No idea. I believe it's really low level from maybe Python core libraries, but I'm not sure. By the way, this path to this R library does exist. I verified that. I also tried to change system variables to include some variables to specify the path manually. I tried adding R into the path of the system. Nothing worked. After like 3 days, I found out that Windows is officially not supported by this package, which doesn't mean it won't work at all. Some people had some success, but the implementation on the Windows platform is really poor at this moment. And other people are facing the same issue as I do. Surprisingly, some were able to solve it, but I think not quite, but anyway. So as you can see, strange error, and my unit test won't run. Alright, so let's take a look at what I found. Here is the browser. I can close that. I was able to find a issue describing the same error, and this is the good hint also for you guys. So if you have some issue with the library, if it's open source, try to go into its source code and click on the issues tab, because it's quite possible that somebody already found some strange behavior like you did and reported that. And if not, it's quite a good way to create an issue and deal with those programmers directly, like somebody did before. So I found this error, which means people are trying to bring this package on Windows and are really facing strange issues like I do. Some suggested some solutions, but none of them worked for me. Also, you can see there are other related issues, and there are quite plenty, all dealing with these strange RDLL errors on Windows. Remember, it's just Windows, not Mac OS, not Linux. Also, interestingly, when I debugged the code, and I will show you, I tried to do different libraries. I tried to specifically tell the path to the library, so nothing worked, and really don't know what's happening, but we'll get to that. So 24 days ago, same problem, no solution to that. The issue is still open. and I found several issues similar to that. 721, this is the same. Anyway, this is another issue which is closed at this moment, but I don't know what was the reason for close up. The error 0x7e is still there. While I did my research, I also was considering to use older version of rpy2 package. I found some precompiled binaries for Windows which are not very well maintained at this point, so I abandoned this because I want to have some stable solution which is functioning for quite some time, not just something which works on my single machine and will break on another. So I decided to do a different approach. For quite some time I was even motivated to fix the bug for myself, because I was digging in the code anyway. Sadly, for now I wasn't able to find the root cause of this, and I'm not the only one. So this is my notes I made while researching the problem, and this is yet another useful thing for you. If you are dealing with a complex issue, make notes. Write anything you want, because it can be helpful later when you put your pieces together, and some people who will go after you can just build on your documentation, on your findings. So please document whatever you do when you deal with issues. Let's take a look at the RPI package. How does it interact with the R programming language? Well, it turns out when you see the requirements that it uses this CFFI package, and this is the tool, or maybe the most standard tool used for interacting with C++ or other code. It can load binaries, it can load dynamic libraries, shared libraries, and it has two types of access, through API or through ABI calls. ABI means that it will open the library as a binary object, and it expects exact signature of the method calls. I'm really simplifying right now, but you can check their documentation. It's somewhere up here. So CFFI redox enc. Let's take a look at this overview, and they have some AB level and AP level. Basically, it means that when you do API access of the library, you need to do some compilation, and you need to create a native Python module which will interact with the library. It is a better approach when you can afford that, when your target operating system has all tools to compile the code. But on Windows, as I found out from the source code of the rpy2, only ABI access is allowed, and it is really buggy. They even write that ABI access is buggy, and it's not surprised that there are many issues. And one of the reasons why Windows is still not yet officially supported. However, pull requests are welcome, so maybe I'll get to that. So when I got into this low-level CFFI module, I started reading the documentation, and the problem is in this DL open call I have. This is the part where my code hangs because it can't find the library. How did I find out? Let's take a look. I have a simple script which does this. It imports R objects from rpy2 and prints hello world. I know that this statement won't never be printed because the code will fail on the imports, but this script allows me to run debugging. So I can do debug RPI test, and I can go directly to the last point which executes normally, and then I can find out what's going on. So this works. this still works. And now, do you see this if statement? FFI proxy get FFI mode. Let's call this method. So on Windows we are accessing the library through ABI access. As I mentioned, it's in the official documentation, and I just confirmed what's expected. So on other platforms like Linux, the preferred method from the newest versions, maybe not the preferred method, but at least in Ubuntu it was probably the preferred method, is through API. But in my case this is false, so we are not accessing through API calls but through ABI calls. And this DL open, this is a wrapper. Let's go to the main code, and this wrapper calls this FFI DL open library, so we are here. Now let's take a look at the reference, what it does. So CFFI reference, and now we go into DL open. So opens and returns are handled to dynamic library. That's it. Very simple, it should work. I expect it to fail later when I would try to run real methods on this R language, like accessing some object or whatever, not by just opening an existing library. Anyway, it fails because let's take a look. The lib path is set correctly. The program files are blah blah blah, and now FFI DL open, the lib path cannot load library. You see? I won't try other approaches, other examples, because it was the same, so I'll just save you some time. Basically, I closed this, that Windows is just not supported and it's not worth trying at this point because I wasted too many hours, and I tried some workaround. As you may or may not know, Windows has a pretty decent support of Linux through their Windows subsystem for Linux, and you can run Ubuntu, which can interact really well with the Windows machine. So that was my workaround, and let's take a look at it. So we are here in Ubuntu, and our main C drive is accessible through mount C, and from that point you can go to your repository. So it's like users, my name, now and now I created a virtual environment, but it turned out this is a problem also on Linux, because the interaction with R or the rpy2 package requires some compilation, and it was a problem here as well. It failed. But I found out that Python packages like rpy2 are part of the Ubuntu repository, so you can just download the precompiled package. And I did exactly that. So I installed the R language, Python, PyTest, all modules I needed, including this rpy2. And the only issue is that I need to use the system Python, not the virtual environment, because in this environment the packages are not yet there. And from that point it started working, because Linux binaries or Linux is supported quite well with this rpy2, and I can just show you. So I'll go into, let's run PyTest. Whoa, no module mock. Three PyTest. Alright, probably I was interacting with Python too. Anyway, as you can see, I'm not getting the error that the library is not loaded, and my tests actually run except one, but this is a non-relevant issue at this point. So the workaround seems to be working. Right now I just need to find a way how to better interact with this terminal, because I need to write some new unit tests, and it would be really helpful to have some integration with PyCharm to maybe debug the code. I don't know if it is supported or is not, but at least I have something usable which I can use, and it's a pretty nice closure. It's Friday and I know that on Monday I can finally start working on my programming job. So yeah, that's about it for solving those issues. You know, it really is part of programming job if you decide to be one, and while most of the time you enjoy what you do, sometimes you just need to do things like this, and yeah, it's part of the job anyway. What can you do? Maybe select some junior developer who would solve that even longer than you, and it's really not a solution. Anyway, if you encounter issues like this, at least try to learn as much as possible, because overall you are gaining experience. Right now, for example, I know much more about interacting with external processes outside of Python, and it might be really helpful in the future. So ultimately I learned a ton, and that's what really matters. So thank you for your attention if you stick to the end of today's video, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye and have a nice day.